have the right to summons you, and you have to go. But what they don't have to do is all the documents don't have to be judicial. And you'll find out what the document is under when you look at the bottom left-hand corner, right? It'll say judicial document, or it'll just have a docket number. So the docket number is maritime. The judicial document will tell you judicial, so you have to appear. You are being lawfully summoned, and they will use force if they have to. Some people will drop it. Depends on if the opposing counsel says whatever. Just forget about it. It's too much money, right?
Yeah.
But if the opposing counsel hates you that much and they have the money to come after you, they're going to drag your ass in there one way or another because of the maritime. So if you go in there, you can sit there and go and just tell them, oh, Your Honor, I think there's a confusion in the paperwork. The summons says that we're in judicial court. Your flag is saying we're in maritime, and these other documents are saying that we're in maritime. And, if we could, excuse this, and come back, I can put in a change of venue and, get this right. Don't blame the judge because, again, they didn't send it to you. Blame the clerk, blame the officer, blame whoever it was that filed it first. So they can switch the blame. Because they're not going to let you blame them.
Right.
But they'll let you run with the blame.
See, and that's funny because that's what the judge said. I said, you guys told me to get an attorney. And he goes, us guys? I said, yeah, the court. He goes, we told you. I said, the previous judge did. Because he was like, I didn't tell you.
Yeah. Well, that's called plausible deniability. That's what that is.
Right. But I have a new judge now because Dylan got canned. We think she got terminated. But, or I should say eliminated because she screwed up. And she got caught by a bunch of citizens, a bunch of people going to the sheriff and complaining about her. There was 12 complaints written about her.
I think there was more than that.
I know. She was having trouble last year. She was having a lot of trouble. I think the district attorney's office made a complaint against her. So, Mary, I just want to make sure I got this right in my mind, and I'm going to record this next part. Do you tell me? Because I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I'm a CPS. That's what I do. I try to save people's children from CPS. Okay, that's my calling in life, and I've got a lot of CPS cases in California. So if I can train these parents, these loving parents that got their kids ripped from them, on what to say exactly when they walk into the court, then I can, I could even go at it after the fact with the cases that are ongoing and just say, I really didn't recognize before, but you're flying a maritime flag. What jurisdiction? What's the venue?
Yeah, you have to ask the venue because jurisdiction is
doesn't matter.
Their county.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. So what is the
venue is what matters because they run 3 venues. They run common law, judicial, and maritime. And they use all 3 of them.
Okay, so you're saying that they don't use admiralty jurisdiction?
They can, but I think there's the basics. They're going to use all 3 of those because if you win the case, you have to file judicial forms. If you lose the case, the opposing counsel is filing judicial forms against you as a living person, and you are the one that infected them.
Right. So like I notice on my deed that my name's in upper and lower case, but when I get a property tax bill, it's always uppercase.
Right. So they have to summons the living person, which is the upper lower case, because on my summons, everybody's upper lower case, but on their documents, it's all uppercase.
Yeah.
So that's where they're fighting with your strawman.
Right. The truck.
So you just tell. That's why you say you don't. Yeah, that's why you're saying go into the court humble and kind, but just point it out, like, Your Honor, I apologize, but I think we're in the wrong venue. Or I'm confused. I think one of your clerks filed these wrong. Or opposing counsel, just give the judge somebody to blame because now they know that you know, and they're okay. Just have to find remedy.
Right.
You don't want to be. 2 lions can't live in the same territory. They're going to kill. One's going to die, and they got bigger guns and clubs.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
you just got to shift the blame. They're all about shifting the blame.
All right. So if I was training parents right now, okay, because I love the way you explained it, but I wasn't recording it, so I'm recording it now. If the parents walk into court, they're going to look over at the flag, and what would they say?
Well, first they're going to ask the judge before we start. Do you have a certified copy of your oath? A lot of times they're going to say yes because they're proud to give you their oath. Their oath is going to say under the Constitution. They're going to fight for your constitutional rights. But if you don't have that, then they don't have to fight for you. Make sure you have that. If they don't have it, then you notice the flag and be like, okay, just one more question, Your Honor. I've noticed you're flying the maritime flag. Are we in a maritime court? Can you tell me what your venue is? Because I came here on a judicial summons, but I've also noticed that the paperwork in between is not judicial. So maybe one of the clerks or opposing counsel accidentally filed the wrong documents. If we could, move this out a little bit, depending on the situation, maybe I could put a request for a motion to change venue to just judicial so everybody can correct their paperwork. That puts you as the judicial person where they have to prove you're guilty, not you have to prove your innocence.
Right. Assuming you don't plead not guilty.
No, you don't plead, because when you're in maritime, you're in war. So the military arrests people and you're guilty until proven innocent. So under maritime law, you are coming to court saying you're guilty and you have to prove you're innocent.
Right.
Under judicial, you're innocent until you are proven guilty.
Right.
So they're using these documents, they're mixing them all up. Does that make sense? So that way they can force you in with the judicial summons. You have to appear. They can force you to come in if opposing counsel makes a stink. If they don't, you can drop it. It never existed, right?
Right.
Because they have to keep filing, and it keeps, it's costing them money with the attorneys.
Okay,
and if how much money somebody has.
And if you ask about the flag and the judge doesn't tell you, let's say they don't have their oath and they won't answer your question about the flag, how would you respond to that?
You can ask the clerk. The clerk has to tell you.
Okay, the clerk has to tell you.
Right.
Even if I'm in the
judge walks out of the courtroom, if the judge walks out of the courtroom because I think you can just say, you don't got to leave. I'm not here to fight with you. I just want to make sure we're in the right venue, sir, or ma'am, or whoever the judge is, Your Honor. And that's what I'm saying. Shift the blame to your opposing counsel or maybe your clerks accidentally filed the wrong documents. I don't know, but they don't do documents, right? So it would be opposing counsel. It would be CPS. Shift the blame. Because when you go into a traffic court and somebody calls in the officer who gave you the ticket, the judge will blame it on the officer. If you know what you're talking about, they'll turn around and blame the officer for dragging you in there because now you just let everybody else in that courtroom know that there's a way to get out of it. And now they're pissed. So you just got to give the judge a way to shift the blame to somebody else, and then they'll be like, well, let's be back in 2 weeks, get those documents filed, we'll be in the right venue. And you'll notice when you're in the right venue, they'll switch that flag out to the citizen flag, which is the peace flag, because now you're under that jurisdiction.
Okay. But
if CPS refuses to give the kids back, the courts refuse to help you, that's when you take it to the National Guard. But you have to get the court to admit that they were under maritime venue during the proceeding. And you have to have a witness stating it.
Okay.
Or a recording.
And you think the judge may be trying to leave because they're trying to reset the court, correct?
Correct, yes. And how you stop that is you have a motion a judicial motion to file to close that court. So whatever motion you want to put in, you have to file the motion. Enough!
Okay.
Got that. Sorry, Sorry, my dog's barking.
That's all right. So
yeah, to close it. So if you want to close it, get a motion to close case due to whatever reason. But you have to have that ready because they're going to have one ready to file after you leave. So you have to file it first. And if the court says they can't file that, you have to let them know, well, hey, the judge just admitted we were in Maritime. Again, the clerks aren't sitting in there listening to the judge and you talk, so they have no idea.
But there is
what
one
just
clerk
transpired.
there.
Right, but she's not going to run to the other clerks and go, oh my God, we just admitted we were in Maritime.
well, so then you would go to you would have a motion ready to file, motion to dismiss for improper venue.
Right, and always put in there whatever you need returned back to you. So in whatever step, depending on what motion, you can put it in other. CPS is required by whatever law of jurisdiction to return the children to its natural parents. And
Okay.
this is your case build-up.
Okay, so in other words, you would put in the motion to dismiss your what would you call it, a prayer for relief or something else?
No, motion to dismiss case due to failure of proper jurisdiction. I mean, there's so many different motions to close a case.
Yeah.
It's going to be different for everybody. So they have to figure out, this is before you go to court. Because, again, a lot of those judges are just going to run out. I've helped a lot of friends across the country, and some of them filmed them just throwing their papers in the air and running out of the building. I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, but I think they're trying to reset the court, because if they did, then you always have the right to say the judges abandoned ship.
Correct, but the judge didn't abandon it. She didn't walk out of the building. You did. So you abandoned ship. You have to file that motion to close it. Case done, our business is closed.
Okay, well,
they're going to go back in there and file a motion after you.
Okay, well, how do you file the motion while you're standing in court? You just ask the bailiff to hand it to the court?
You go to the clerk's desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're done with a regular court case, and the court case is, closed, okay, well, go ahead and file your paperwork. The attorneys or you always file paperwork after court. You have to file something after each court. That's their record, the court of record, right? So you have to show that you were there. You have to put in whatever the motion was. And usually the attorney will stay.
I motion for mine too then when I closed my case.
Right. That's what I was saying. Your case isn't closed because we didn't put the motion in.
Well, what if you put it in 2 days later, Mary?
You have to put it in that day after they leave the court, because they're going to put one in after you leave.
Okay.
Because they didn't give you permission to have the 3 to 10 days to, file your response.
Right. Well,
or your end of hearing, whatever.
So that's in their statutes.
But she left the court, so you guys didn't have a remedy.
Right. So if they do leave the court, you file the motion to dismiss, or not?
You have to file them, to dismiss it, close it, quash it, whatever you want, and then you have to get them to stamp it. The clerk is not going to want to stamp it, so then you say, well, I could take it. I was like, look, your judge already admitted you guys were in a Maritime, so I guess I'm going to have to take this down to the National Guard, and I don't think you're going to like what they do. And I guarantee you they'll sit down and start stamping.
Right.
Because I told her that twice, and she shut up, sat down, and she went, thud, 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 and she was stamping everywhere else but where she needed to. And I was like, man, there's a box and it says stamp here. Can you just stamp there? And then she had to stamp it all over again.
Yeah, that's great. I learned something today. I'm glad you got her on the phone.
I've been trying to get you guys together for a while.
So tell me, just while I'm still recording, recant the CPS, what happened with the CPS case to me?
Can what?
The CPS case? You know, the one where you said the guy got his kids back? What he did?
That's what I was telling you. You have to have all the evidence. You take that down to the military because they took your children. You prove that you were under the right jurisdiction of sovereignty and that those are your cargo, your living, breathing children. And that's why I said change the venue. They're your property. CPS had no legal right to come in there. They did not give you any specific right. There was no proof of abuse. or anything like that. So, but you went through the court, and then you found out. That's what I'm saying. Any kind of evidence you have. I mean, CPS has been in and out of my life for a long time. They were never successful at getting my kids because I told them, because I know how to work those people. I mean, eventually they could. If they really wanted them that bad, they'd come take them. But I'm a force to be reckoned with. But, so yeah, you just have to take all the evidence down there. You have to prove with a federal witness or recording that they admitted that they were not a judicial court and were under Maritime. And Jeanette was standing right there when I brought in the judicial document at the first time, and she's like, oh, we can't file this. And I was like, why not? It's your document. And she's like, well, no, technically it's not. And I was like, yes, it is. I got it off your webpage. And she's like, well, we can't file it here. And I was like, why not? And she's like, well, we're not judicial. I was like, what?
The clerk told you that?
Okay, well, I still need you to file it. And then that's when I had mentioned, I was like, well, okay, so I already put it in here. And so I asked her venue, and she said Maritime. And I was like, okay, well, then I guess I got to go down to the military, or you can file this. So she started stamping it. That was the first time. And then Jeanette was like, did you just hear her? She said she wasn't judicial. That means that they are not, she admitted she's not a court. So you just have to get them to admit they're not a real court.
Either
and
the
they were not
clerk or the
practicing
judge.
law in order to help you. The judges are judicial judges. If you can sway and file the motion for venue change of venue, back to judicial.
But not all the judges here in Placerville are judicial, because when I filed complaints against some of them to the judicial, they got kicked back.
Right, because you were filing under Maritime documents.
I'll
You
tell
have
you
to
my,
change the venue.
I'll tell you my issue with that is that I happen to know for a fact at the end of 2019 there were 225,000 administrative law judges in the United States. There's probably more today. So calling them judicial is kind of a stretch for me as well, because where are
No, and I
those
understand that.
225,000 judges, administrative law judges?
You have to put them in the right venue.
Right. Yeah.
Again, they're using all three venues to attack you.
Right. Now let me ask you this.
Okay.
You said the forms that you downloaded off their website say judicial at the bottom left of the form.
Mm-hmm.
They have that
You
word
have to go
on.
to the judicial, you have to go to the judicial part of it, though. They're not going to have them with the regular court. They hide them on your webpage. So for us, it'll just say a button that says documents and forms. Click here, and then you click there, and you'll get the regular ones. Over further to the left, it'll say judicial something. I don't remember, but that's what the judicial forms are.
Okay.
And you can even look it up, judicial document for blah, 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 whatever town you're in. And those judicial documents will show up.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And that's kind of what I discovered over here, because I have that book, and I'm pretty sure you have it too. The UCC filing, and it tells you about the different jurisdictions of the court, or the different laws that are running in the court. They're using all three of them against us.
Yeah.
They summons us with the living person because we're the beneficiary. So that makes sense. They need us to come in and sign these documents, right? So that's why they said, throw your birth certificate in the well of the court and say, here's the person you're fighting with. I'm the beneficiary, and I don't accept the responsibility of what the straw man did. But then again, you still got to go file for something to close it. And you got to give the reasons why. They're not going to want that on paper, and they're not going to put it on a public document. They're going to they have their public file, their special showing file, and then they have their confidential file. Their confidential file holds their jurisdictions, because they'll file stuff against you, but they change the venue in their file.
Right.
When I was a legal secretary, this didn't make sense to me at first. When the judge or my attorney would have me only only give their client certain things out of the file, because I thought the file was theirs. right? Everything that was in it, correspondences, stuff like that. And he said, no, those are correspondences between me and their attorney. They don't need those. I never read them, I just read the books, the law books. So it makes sense. There's only certain things they're going to let us see, and there's things they're not going to let us see.
Right.
The court works the same way. Yeah, because when I filed in the quantum, it was under special showing. You told me it's in your special showing file. Oh, okay. I didn't even know that existed. They didn't know. They don't know. They don't care what law you use to win,
Yeah.
They do, kind of, but they're still going to file it. A long time, she said it was in my pickup or whatever that was, but then they had to put it in the file.
Now, what if you're the plaintiff? What if you're the plaintiff, Mary? What would you do? You still use the judicial forms, but would you file a motion for a specific venue?
Yeah, a motion to stay in judicial court. Because the summons, because I was the plaintiff at first, because I sued the landlords. There was a housing situation, and because they were trying to add a 2-year lease, and they tried kicking me out after 1 year during COVID, and it went on for a year and a half after that. So I guess I bought myself 6 months or 8 months, and the original lawsuit was $200,000. That's all they had to pay for damages caused to me and my family. But because I closed my case after my attorney pretty much handed me over to a silver platter to opposing counsel, that's when I started using the quantum. So when I started using the quantum, they had to close my case due to, what was it? I can't remember the reason.
When you say quantum, you're talking about David Wynn Miller. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was under Russell, but that's when I found out Russell is just as bad as they are. When you sign up with Russell J. Gould, he becomes your legal administrator, so he makes decisions on your case. And he told the court to kick me out of the house. That I didn't have permission to use the quantum.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck?
And he's also a devil worshiper.
Yeah, he's a Luciferian.
This is after you paid him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I called her, hey, how's it going? When he saw her greeting her into the group, like one of his buddies. And then when we start figuring out, because I was doing some of the stuff with her, we figured it out. That's when he outed her.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you, Jeanette, be careful who your friends are, who you make your friends.
I know, that's okay. You're married.
Choose your private counsel very carefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Mary,
I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate you sharing this with me. I got several cases. I could do this right now. But what about all the paperwork that's been previously filed? What would I do about that?
You take all of it in as evidence. Just take copies of it. Or you could take the originals, because they're going to take it. They're going to make their own copies. But you have to be victimized. So you have to get them to prove. Like I said, when you walk in there and you say, hey, we were going through court, they took my kids, and I've been fighting to get them back, and then I finally, I learned about the flags and the laws, and the courts told me that the courts are closed and that they're under Maritime, and they have to say Maritime to me means I have to come to you guys. So how did my kids get taken away from me without evidence of abuse and all this other stuff?
Or just allegations. Just allegations.
Yeah, just allegations, yeah. Say they kidnapped my children.
Okay, all right, I got another one for you. In California, I've never seen anything, when I go in to get the docket sheet, I've never seen anything but minute orders on the docket sheet. That's Maritime, right?
Right, yep.
Okay, because if it was judicial, it would say, it would be on what? Where would that record be?
It'd be on your judgments and whose favor it went into.
Okay, but like if I went in and got a copy of a judicial record, where would that be? Let's say the summons. I want a copy of the summons.
Oh, that's in your file.
But
it's at the very bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
So
the register of actions, when you get a copy of that, you'll see all the shenanigans that they've been doing.
Yep.
Now, is the register of actions different than the minute orders of the court?
The register of actions shows everything that has been filed into that case.
Yeah, I call it a docket entry sheet. I call it a docket entry sheet, but I guess there's different names for it.
Right. So how they hide it is they say the number of the document. So let me grab one of mine.
I would like to see, Mary, if it's okay with you, I would like to see some of your documents to see how you put it together. If you don't mind sharing them. If I won't share them with anyone else. I just want to see how you operated with your filings. The argument.
I used to be a legal secretary, so I know the order of operations.
Yeah.
And then when I was in the military, I knew federal and international law. So I got a lot of people out of some bad stuff. But again, I didn't know that they were that evil.
Here's another problem that I have. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution says that whatever limited powers aren't held to the federal government belong to the states or the people. But like all of this stuff with like CPS and child support, it's all under private international treaty law that they embed in state statutes. And that's a violation of my 10th Amendment rights.
Right. I'm trying to find it in here. So in here, so at the bottom of this document, I put number 7, it says other specify. So I put Title 10 and Title 32, DCCS 501.4, martial law employment of troops in aid of civil authorities. And then I put the two dot things. Recovery under CCCS 3287B, quantum moriae. Now, if you look up now I just found this out because a friend of mine overseas got his ass handed to him really bad by Russell. He actually got 86 out of his own country. He will be executed if he goes to his own country now because of the quantum.
Okay, so you're saying you don't want to use quantum at all?
Well, we're using it the wrong way. So if you look up the Black's Law Dictionary, and I'll send that to Jeanette too. If you look up the Black's Law 5th edition dictionary, quantum means payment for damages. So that's what quantum law stands for. It has nothing to do with the language. It's the code. And it's called quantum I don't know how to pronounce it. MERUIT. It's payment for damages because the courts they're not mediators, right? If two people can't get along, they're there to assess. But if you don't have anything that can be collected in damages, they can't do anything for you. They can write up a few rules and they can enforce something, but they like it if somebody has damages because they can make money off of damages.
Right.
So can you.
Right.
So that's what a court technically is supposed to come in for. What were the damages done? So you have to be able to kind of word these title codes in a certain order. So at the end is where you say under quantum moriae. So, or morae, I don't know how to pronounce that word. But it's very powerful because that is the absolute right there. That's what quantum law was supposed to do. But it's not an actual law itself or a language. It's just a law that protects you as the living being. I just found this out a few days ago. I'm like, holy crap, are you kidding me?
Well, how did your buddy get 86 out of his own country for using it?
He went after the government.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because Russell is using us to fight his war against the government. Because he's sovereign. He made it out. He's not going to teach anybody else how to do it, but he's using us to fight his war, and that's why we keep getting in trouble.
Right.
Because he tells you to go in there and take back what's yours. And I'm a fighter, man. I was in the military. I like to fight. I won't back down from a fight. I might die doing it, but I'll fight.
Yeah.
I got 10 years of anger behind me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, because that's what we do when you defend yourself. You're thinking, we're going in for a fight. But we don't want to start a physical war right now, because every time we do, the bad guys win.
Right. Belligerents, rebels, and enemies of the state. Yes.
Right. So we had to do it differently this time. We had to come in using our brains and strategy. And that's why they don't know what to do, because they're expecting us to react and fight. And some of us do. I did. Shit, I almost got arrested.
Yeah, every time I go into court, I do too. But the problem with me is I know the law. So they're not going to sit there and tell me that black is white. I know better.
Right. So yeah, I can send you copies of these. I don't care what you do with them. They're not.
Well, I just want you to know I'll protect them. I just want to see how you you mentioned several times there was a method of operations, like an order.
Order of operations, yeah.
Okay, so can you?
Every case is different, yeah. So in this case, I have. Let me undo this real quick. So I have to file I'm suing 4 individuals because they were all operators in the same thing. That's where the whole double jeopardy. My winnings is $2.6 million, but they each have to pay that individually.
Okay, so when you sued them individually, not as you sued them individually.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Right, because at first I took the company to court, the real estate company, because they were the managing company, the property management company. And then when I closed my case, the owners came in and they filed a whole year's worth of documents in one day, April 4th, I think it was. And I got served on June 11th. That's way past the 45 days. And I didn't have any time to respond, so they hid it for that long. Mine closed in, what was it? June. My case was closed in June, so they served me July 11th. I put my summary judgment in the day that I got, or 3 days after I got notice that the case was dismissed for no findings. You can still put your judgment in. It doesn't matter if they close it or not. You sued for damages. So they have to keep it open technically.
Okay.
But they're no longer going to hear it in court, right? So I sent my summary judgment or summary claim in the quantum. Everybody got served. It doesn't matter how they do it. If they receive it, that's why I send it certified. It shows received. So it doesn't matter what they do or how they file it, they received it. That means they didn't send it back to you saying we don't comply. And they can't. They're a public place.
Right.
So they left that. And then on June 11th, I was served with this double jeopardy. And then August 18th, I was removed from the house because they got me on an unlawful filing, which then put into a default, an illegal default. So they were able to use the sheriff's department to remove me.
And then how did you handle? Oh, so now you're going back after them and suing them.
For the double jeopardy.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Which we're at the tail end of, because she filed it in the paper for 30 days and did all that stuff, and so now she's going in for the liens.
Gotcha.
Yep, for the liens on their house. So what I did is I have a proof of service, the final judgment, and I did get a state UCC 1 approved, and with my bill, which is 2.696423. So the original lawsuit was $296,423, and I settled on the double jeopardy because I told the owner I would put a $2.4 million lien on his home if he continued, and I wanted to resolve this with him because I didn't feel he knew what his property management company was doing. Well, then he was like all pissed off, and he started yelling at me and all this other stuff and said he was going to call his attorney. So that told me he knew what was going on. He was behind all of it. So I said, okay. So you have to give closure that you're going to put a lien on them. And I did. So I have the approval from the state secretary to put the lien, along with the evidence of my paper filing. And I'll read to you, if you have a minute, what it says.
Yeah.
So it says, legal notice and declaration to Robert Lasarona and Claire Lasarona and Jesse Crawford, agents for and BRG Property Management Company by the estate of Mary Margaret Beaver, and then the address I was living in. And then it says the same title, but you say to, all their names, and then it says, by virtue of an order of the Superior Court of El Dorado of the State of California made on the 19th day of August, A.D. 2022, in a certain special cause, because you got to identify the folder. So, wherein Mary Margaret Beaver is the plaintiff and judgment creditor, and you are the defendants, you are required to pay each and individual sum of the settlement in the amount of $2.6 million, not to exceed $11 million per defendant, according to the Title Code 42 USCS 2000 H1 Double Jeopardy, in the court case number, and it's both the case numbers, for damages caused to Mary Beaver and offspring in the means of, but not limited to, writ of execution and writ of possession, cessaeus execution, wage garnishment, account garnishment, and liens on real and personal properties and in pending actions, within accordance of the summary claim/judgment and a compensation recovery filed on the 5th day of August, AD 2022, was to be satisfied by 90 days after filing, which ended on the 12th day of November, AD 2022. Therefore, as of this date, these lawful filed and unrebutted, uncontested, and unchallenged documents have now become the absolute unchallenged judgment in commerce in this matter in favor of Mary Margaret Beaver. Consequently, as of this date, Robert Lasarona and Claire Lasarona and Jesse Crawford, agents for and BRG Property Management Company, defendants, have therefore forever forfeited any and all lawful claim against Mary Margaret Beaver in fact.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So then it has all the other evidence, the newspaper clippings, the last judicial document for application to attach or right to attach order, temporary protective order, order for issuance of writ of attachment, order for issuance of additional writ. This is still a judgment. So that was the judgment that I was able to force them to sign. And then I have all the quantum stuff in the back. I have the original summons, the original complaint when I first sued them. And then they obstructed it. So in the order of operations, you would have proof of service, final judgment affidavit, and then for this one, it would be judgment debtor's statement of assets. And you can go after anybody. I did go after the judge because I sent them all individual. However, again, the judges don't want to be blamed. But they'll help you shift the blame if you give it to them.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then this one is the application or order to produce statement of assets. This one is where they can actually get arrested if they don't comply. They can go to jail until they want to comply. And then there's another civil claim subpoena for personal appearance and production of documents and things at trial or hearing and declaration. So these ones are your judicial documents. And it's fascinating how many there are. See, this is the law that they got away from in 1999. They started shifting over into the maritime and learning how to mix and match how they could go after you. No, I'm still eating it. Okay.
I'm surprised that double jeopardy was over in the supplemental of the U.S. Code.
Well, it's in your 5th constitutional right, but it doesn't say murder. It says crime. So what crime was committed that caused the double jeopardy? No entity or government can use the law against you for the same crime twice. Crime, not murder.
And that's the same thing what Cal OSHA did, too. In my case, they did 2 judgments for the same thing, 2 different prices.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
So you're saying
double jeopardy.
I guess a breach of contract would also apply to a crime, or would it?
Yeah, you can use any laws. You just have to be able to prove damages. How?
If that is code, please scan it now. 3. What do you know? If you have your club card, please scan it now. Enter your item, and touch the bar. Place your item in the bag. $2.99.
That's funny. I would recognize that voice anywhere.
Your card has been accepted.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to mute. I'm at the store. I'm getting ready to go to work.
All right, look, I want to talk to you again, Mary.
Mary? Did she drop off?
Did we lose her? I guess we did. All right, well,
That happens a lot when I talk with her.
that's cool. I really learned something today. I'm glad that you introduced me to her.
Okay.
And I'm glad to hear back from you.
I know.